Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Human Echoes Podcast, the show where we review oddball movies, have oddball discussions, and occasionally take questions from you, the oddball fans.
I'm Tony Southcott.
I'm Albert Berg, and our oddball movie for this week is a movie that has oddballs in it, Tony.
Yes, very, very odd, and very violent.
This is Phantasm, a movie from 1979, the first feature film, I believe, from director Don Coscarelli, kind of a cult favorite, also the director of Bubba Hotep, and
the newest
John
one he's
Dies
done
at
is
the
John
End.
Dies at the End, yeah. And you're lying to people. Your name is Albert Berg.
Oh, on Twitter, yeah, I finally put together a Twitter name. I was like, everybody gets to have scary Halloween names, and I can never think of any. Like Rhianna Pratchett, right? Rhianna Pratchett, you know who Rhianna Pratchett is, daughter of Terry Pratchett?
Yeah.
She gets to be Reanimator. Like, that's awesome. That's amazing.
We'll have to come up with some Thanksgiving ones because nobody does that.
Albert full of turkey Berg kind of thing.
Something like that.
Albert chose to cook a ham instead of a turkey this year for some reason.
Which is the proper choice. Yes.
It is, or even steak.
Yeah, my family always does that steak for Christmas, not for Thanksgiving. We definitely do ham over turkey, though.
Like some real good pork chops, maybe?
That'd be good. Anyway, we're talking
Welcome
about
to the Food Podcast, where we tell you what to eat for the holidays. Get a walk. That's step one. No, Phantasm. So this is a movie. This is a movie that should not, by any standards, work at all. Like, it just, if you explained what this movie was going to be, you're like, all right. First of all, it's an indie film, first time director, completely unknown actors, like people you've never heard of, who've probably not acted in much of anything ever. Also, it's all a dream. Nothing happened. Like, nothing really makes sense ever in the movie. I would say, okay, this sounds like a recipe for just the worst. Just the worst thing. And yet, somehow, it succeeds on basically tone all by itself. Like, just the tone of this movie works so well that you can't help but sort of be sucked into it.
It does. The entire time, it's just this terrifying, dreamlike quality to everything that happens. Like, you've got the tall man doing his thing, and it's just one of the more menacing villains I've seen in a while. And before we get any further, we did watch the brand new remastered version of this movie, which it looks great for 1979. They did a good job with cleaning this movie up and getting it just looking perfect. Especially
considering that when they shot this in 1979, there was no budget. So sometimes you think, oh, you're going to clean this up, and it's like now you're going to see all the bad stuff, right? But you don't, even with the cleaned up print, you're not like, oh, wow, now that looks like they put, plastic marble things over plywood to make that mausoleum, which is what they actually did in real life. They put marble stickers over plywood to make the mausoleum set.
That seems like something you'd see in like someone's like double wide, where they're like, "I'm gonna make this bathroom look like marble."
I don't want to cast aspersions on anybody with a double wide who's trying to class up the joint. If you don't have any money, you don't have any money. Like, you do what you can do.
Yeah, for sure.
But it looks good. I think they might have maybe not redone the special effects, but I think touched up a little bit on the special effects. That's what I'd heard. But regardless of all of that, it works. The special effects are, they're very simple things. Like, there's this, silver ball that goes flying around, and I was reading in the IMDb trivia section for this movie that they just had a pitcher stand behind the camera and chuck silver balls out in front, and then printed ran the negative backward, so it looks like the ball is flying towards the camera.
I mean, that makes sense. It looked good. It looks better than trying to put it on a wire and everything, I guess.
I would imagine there's a few that are on wires, but generally, yeah. And then when the thing, a lot of stuff in reverse for this movie, when the thing sticks in the guy's head, they just start it off in the guy's head and then yank it out with a string.
Yeah.
And it works. It all looks good. It uses the power of editing a lot, where you'll just cut from, somebody getting pleasured by a really hot young lady, and then cut back to the old man standing at where she was. No, it wasn't what you thought it was. Ah! I don't know why
But
he
it's
wants...
exactly what you hoped it was.
Keep your personal preferences out of this, Tony.
Definitely not.
And it is... I mean, this is a spoiler, I guess, but the movie's been out for a while. It is all a dream. Which is, like, the worst.
I refuse to accept that. Like, the movie just ends right after the mine shaft scene for me. Especially because they have, like, Phantasm 2. And if it's all a dream, then, like, why does the guy come back and do his thing, like, right after that?
Okay, so my interpretation of that was that it was a dream, but the tall man was able to manipulate the kid's mind, or possibly he was receiving a prophecy from some other force, letting him know what could happen or what would happen.
I could see that.
I didn't think that, like, what we saw had no validity whatsoever, but I thought that it was sort of a representation of what was possible through the tall man. And he is, I mean, that's another thing that really shouldn't work, right? Like, here's this monster that nobody's heard of before. Like, they're just making stuff up for this movie. They're not like, we're going to use Frankenstein or we're going to use Dracula or something. No recognizable monster at all. It's just like, you've got this guy who looks a little goofy and he's already about 6'4", but we're going to put him in, like, even like a small suit and, like, really tall lift boots and just have him glower at the camera, and that's going to be amazing. You guys are going to be amazed by this guy, and we're just going to call him the tall man, okay? All right, moving on. That's our monster.
Gonna have a weird moment where he, like, is just staring at the protagonist while someone opens an ice cream truck and makes it all smoky.
And it works! It should not, like, in my mind, I think part of it's the score, which we will not discuss the score, Tony. We don't discuss movie scores anymore.
We can discuss this movie score. It's very relevant for this movie. This was one of the top movie scores I've heard from the 70s.
It really does stick in your mind. It feels like the kind of thing that you would, like, bring back for another movie, like, to just sort of, you know, in like a Quentin Tarantino style where he borrows scores from older movies. That, I mean, this one's a little bit famous, so you would have heard of it, but still, like, it seems like the kind of thing that's just begging to get remixed.
Yeah, maybe we're still writing, like, the Stranger Things high, but this is like a non-synthy version of something like that where it just works perfectly for the movie.
Well, the difference there is that this was actually made in the 70s. As opposed
just
to,
saying, like, that style and everything. That's what,
I guess.
Like, it's what they based, like, the Stranger Things music off of, other than, like, some of the other 80s movies. It just felt like that. But it's iconic in the way that a lot of horror movies from this era are. Like, whenever you watch Halloween or any of these other ones, like, you've got that iconic music happening.
I do like that the theme of the movie is sort of this idea about death. And I think a lot of movies don't really address that. They address the idea of, like, actually being horrified of just dying and just aging. Like, there is a supernatural element here where, you know, there's the weird balls, but the tall man is scary partly because he's, like, well, an undertaker, but also because he's old. And they, like, sort of play that up, which is bizarre that Angus Grimm lived until, what, last year?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he lived till last year.
I mean, rest in peace. I'm sorry that we lost him, but watching him in this movie, I would have, if I hadn't known that, I would have just assumed, well, yeah, he probably died in, like, the 90s. And no, he survived up until very recently. And
January 9th, 2016, he got to 89.
Yeah, and it's about this young boy whose parents have died, and, you know, he's, like, dealing with that, and his brothers just had a friend die, I believe, at the same time. Or is that a different...
the guy with the goatee at the very beginning, they kind of implied that it was more of a friend.
Okay.
I couldn't tell if it was a brother or not. Like, the movie's not fully clear on a few things. Like, you can tell that it's not the most deft hand at writing that worked on this script.
Well, Mike and Jody are brothers.
Yes.
And Mike is afraid that Jody's going to leave him. Jody's the older brother. And Jody has straight up said, I really want to leave Mike. Like, I want to go and do my own thing. Because he's, like, 21, 22. You know, he's wanting to get out of this sort of podunk hick town. And he can't just take his brother with him. But on the other hand, he's the only surviving relative. And so that's another sort of element of real fear where it's this little kid worrying about being abandoned. And I think that,
especially after his parents have died, that's a pretty founded, like, fear.
Yeah. And so I think that building on all of this sort of very real stuff absolutely makes a lot of the more fantastical elements work. I mean, the hiding in the there's one scene where the kid has to hide in a coffin, and you feel it. Like, he's in this coffin showroom, and the idea that you would climb willingly into a coffin in a movie where we've already seen at least 2 people, I think, be buried in coffins, and that imagery is very, very stark in the movie, and really, I think really works.
It definitely does. It kind of reminds me of like the level of fear that would have been going through the mind of Natalie Portman's character in V for Vendetta, where she's watched everyone she loved be black-bagged, and then all of a sudden the hood's over her head.
Yeah, that does. But that's sort of a fantastic thing in a way. I mean, because they set that up as sort of. I mean, obviously it's an allegory for what could happen and what has happened in real fascist empires, but in that particular sense, it's like, well, we're in an alternate history. Here, even though there's the supernatural, again, people die. People do get old. People's bodies do fall apart. And I think that's maybe one reason why the tall man turns into like a beautiful younger person. Again, it fits into that theme of like, here is what you think of yourself as. I mean, granted, not the gender swap thing, but that's just sort of an extra added bonus of weirdness. But, you see yourself as young and beautiful, and yet outside like that, I don't think you ever get over being that person on the inside. I don't think that you ever feel like an old person. My mom's talked to me about this before. She's in her 60s now, I think. And she says, it's not like you become old on the inside. You still feel like you're the same person you were when you were, in your 20s, when you could do all this stuff and when you were beautiful. It's just that your body stops being able to handle that and stops matching the image you have of yourself in your head.
It's like watching my grandpa, like whenever we were out at Lake Mead, he's 85 years old and he's the first one to jump off the boat into the water.
Right. We don't turn into, like, old people aren't different. I mean, maybe they, I'm not saying people don't go through life changes and they don't mature, but somehow in your mind you have that image of yourself and it doesn't always keep pace with what your body's doing. And that is such a great concept to have to ground this otherwise very fluid movie. I don't know if it's something that Coscarelli did because he's a genius and he just sort of like, I'm going to go for this, or if he kind of stumbled into it, but whether or not there was a lot of intent there, it definitely worked.
I'm trying to think of the sequences that really worked for me, and like one of the first things you see that's really unsettling, other than this kid is always spying on everybody trying to do it in the cemetery, is like you see
that's how you know it's his dream sequence.
Yeah.
It's like they're doing it and they're doing it and I get to see her boobs. Oh wait, she turned into an old dude.
But there's still boobs?
For my psyche?
Question mark. But like one of the first things you see with the tall man is like him just picking up a coffin on his own and stuffing it in the back of a car. And there's just something like weird about that sequence that just works so well for establishing him as like the larger than life evil bad guy that's like super strong. I love that sequence so much.
And that's one of those things you did make the point about, like, you refused to admit it was a dream, and I do wonder, there's something about in this movie, the plot, as loose as we can use that word, involves the tall man possibly using these bodies either to bring them back as sort of like zombie, like sort of literal zombies in the sense that we would think of in the voodoo sense, right?
Yeah.
And the thought of someone that you love not getting their proper burial and not being put to rest, but sort
being
of
like
living in this
stuffed
limbo.
into a crazy barrel and being turned into like a dwarf for like slave purposes on another world or dimension.
Which they don't go into. There are now 5 movies in this series. Am I correct in saying that, Tony?
I believe so. It's like the new Ravager or whatever just came out.
Looks, it doesn't look like this one at all. Okay, I want to put that out there. It does not look nearly as good. It looks like it was made by the Asylum, and I want to see it. I want to see it so bad. It just, like, they threw all of the... I mean, there's practically no practical effects at all. There's all CG and, like, giant, like, floating death balls now and ravaging entire cities, and it's crazy. I don't think any of the movies... I haven't seen all the other ones, but I've heard that the rest of them don't live up to this one as far as just sort of being as good. But I do like the trajectory that they go on. Have you seen the other ones, Tony?
I have not. Like, I might have seen Phantasm 2 a long time ago, but it was probably whenever I was like 8 or 9, so I remember nothing from it.
Okay, so here's a fun story. So a couple weeks ago, Sci-Fi. In fact, the reason I saw this was it was on Sci-Fi. They had like a Phantasm marathon. They had Phantasm 1, the remastered version. They had Phantasm 3 and Phantasm 4. Now, I don't know why they didn't have Phantasm 2, Tony. But I watched Phantasm 1. I was like, wow, that's really good. And then I wanted to go to watch Phantasm 3 because I thought, well, maybe it won't. I mean, the first one was a dream, and I kind of know a little bit about the mythology of the series. I know that they're not like real plot heavy where you have to know everything that happened. Get to Phantasm 3, it's like the post-apocalypse where the tall man and the flying death balls have taken over and killed a bunch of people, and like the survivors are running for their lives. It's like, what did I miss in 2?
That is that's a reality shift right there.
But I like that. I like that they're sort of like, well, we did the sort of very contemplative standard one. Now what happens? This guy has all the power. Like, you can't stop him. So he takes over. Okay.
That is just jarring to me. I had no idea the Phantasm 3 went there. I'm going to have to look up some trailers.
I think Phantasm 2 goes there. By Phantasm 4, they're like hopping realities, like into different dimensions, like some of them where the tall man hasn't taken over yet. This is 5, I mean, Ravager, from what I see from the trailers, and they just go bonkers with it.
It's like Phantasm with Rick and Morty.
Even if they don't live up to the original, this is something that I cannot condemn because I've always loved the idea of, when we explored this concept, what happens next. And for Don Coscarelli to be like, well, what does happen next? And just keep ratcheting up the sort of weirdness and the level of insanity and having people shooting these balls with shotguns. I love it. I think it's great.
I definitely do too. Plus, it gave us one of the most violent on-film deaths I've seen. Whenever that ball actually like plants in that dude's face.
Oh, right, and you see it drill into his head.
Yeah, it drills into the head and is just like squirting everywhere. Then you see like the body hit the dirt, and like it's literally like you expect to see a pool of blood, but it's a pool of piss coming out of him.
That was good stuff. They did that several times, and they do that in the sequel. I know they did it in 3 at least once. I didn't get to finish watching it because I had to have my cable box replaced, and so I lost all the stuff I'd recorded off Sci-Fi, Tony.
That sucks. I bet you have a lot on that DVR.
I had so many bad shark movies. Like, I might have gone back to watch Planet of the Sharks again sometime, Tony.
I graduated this week. I have a DVR now. It's weird.
It's amazing. It's the best. Just not having to sit there and watch live television, that's... I cannot say how great that is. Like, just being able to pause and, like, fast forward and, like, oh, I didn't make it home exactly for the Z Nation, episode, but I can totally... It's just recorded, and I can watch it whenever. Or I'll just, like, wait until about 20 minutes into a TV show and then start watching, knowing that I can fast forward through the commercials and end right about when everybody else is ending.
Yeah, I did that with The Walking Dead this week, just avoided Twitter, because... there are very few things worse than commercials in a horror show, because it's just so flow-breaking for the feeling, for like all the emotions of a show, to have to deal with commercials in the middle of it. Man, like, the options are either DVR or you pay the $1.99 to buy the episode on Amazon. Like, otherwise it's not worth watching.
There's something I'm watching that has the exact same problem. I'm watching that Candle Cove show.
Yeah.
And that it's so beautifully atmospheric and creepy, and I've heard people say like, oh, there's not a lot of jump scares in this. There is 0 jump scares so far in Candle Cove. It is just atmosphere, like no loud like music stings or like weird smash cuts, which I'm fine with. I'm not actually respect the jump scare used in moderation. I just rewatched Darling with my wife on Netflix, and there's plenty of what I would call jump scares in there, Tony, but they work at the tone of the film. But this is nothing like that. They just build up this incredibly just uneasy sense in you throughout the whole show. And then you go to a commercial break and it's like, hi, I'm Gray Drake from Rotten Tomatoes here at Universal Studios Scream Nights. And I'm like, I have no problem with Gray Drake at all.
I don't even have a problem with that Scream Nights thing. I think that would be a really cool thing to go to. Just not in the middle of my show.
Not like right after we've just like had this like, and then like, hi, I'm smiling and happy, and no, I don't need you to. Please don't do that. So that was my complaint. I did not have anything else. It's so hard to remember specifics about what happened in this movie, Tony. And I say that as someone who usually puts that down as a negative. If I can't remember a movie, like all the details, I usually think like, well, that was because it was a bad movie. But again, here, I think it's on purpose. I think, you do get hinted at things. Like, I did like the idea of going through to the alien world, and that moment when he goes through the transporter and sees like what they're doing and the line of people in this otherworldly place, and then gets pulled back through. That for me, again, was why I was like, oh, I'm glad that they sort of continued in the other movies to sort of expand, because that hints at so much of a larger world. The possibility that this guy is some kind of an alien thing.
Did you ever end up reading 14 by Peter Clines?
I did not.
Or The Fold? They're actually in the same universe.
No, I haven't.
I could see exactly where he was pulling influences from this movie with that. Like, that ends up being such a cool, like, I don't know. Just, I've read a lot of books recently that I think were pulling influence from that just pan-dimensional thing from this movie, from the way they described what was through the portal or what's on the other side.
Well, and this movie straight up rips off Dune.
Yeah.
As well. A much better movie, in my opinion. They're like, fear is the mind killer. Put your hand in this box. Your hand hurts a lot. Your hand's fine now. Okay. Don't be afraid.
Don't fear.
Right. I mean, it was like literally line for line, practically shot for shot, just, this is what happens. I don't know if it was from the movie or from the book. I don't know when Dune came out, Tony. This is 1979. I think Dune was before that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Dune was early 70s, late 60s.
Let me look it up, Tony. I can.
Frank Herbert, we have the power. We can answer these questions.
1984. They got to, okay, so they got to the Dune thing probably from the books, which I'm sure were not, I mean, I know they were popular, but it wouldn't have been as mainstream at the time to put something that you like from a book, and then eventually they actually make the movie. Did you hate when you know about something cool and then everybody finds out about it and it's not cool anymore? That's the hipsters. That's the hipsters, like, just worst nightmare.
Just the nightmare, yeah. That's your phantasm.
None of my things are cool anymore. I told them all about Attack of the Killer Ants, and now they all watched it and they think it's fun. What do I have? Killer Ants. Right now, I mean, like
it's the middle of the clown craze, and by the time I get my 5 facts out next week for like killer clowns from space, it's gonna be too late.
I mean, it's been like 6 months that the clown craze has been going on. Are you like calling me?
I feel like it's gonna peak at this Halloween, and then it's just gonna be over for a while.
I don't know what. Okay, do you know what's going on with that, by the way? Because I don't.
It's a weird social meme where people are just like, you know what? I can make this even bigger. I can make my town be a part of this.
Are there actually people getting hurt and or killed?
I have not heard anybody getting hurt or killed in recent months. I think there's been 1 or 2 murders over the past like year that have come from people in clown outfits. And that just sounds like it's kind of more the disguise than anything else. And they're playing on the social meme.
Okay.
It's not like those girls that went and tried to kill their friend because they thought Slender Man was real.
Do you think that this is Joe's theory? And the longer this goes on, I don't know if it's on purpose, but this is definitely the best marketing campaign for it. I mean, just amazing.
If it turns out to be that, the person that started this needs to get paid more. Like the marketing director, whoever decided that. I mean, I'm excited for the new It movie. I'm apprehensive just because I don't really like the guy they got to play Pennywise.
Right.
Like, he was fine. Again? He's Skarsgård, the guy from Hemlock Grove. And he might be good. Like, I'll try to give him the benefit of the doubt. It's always hard to beat Tim Curry at anything. But just like, I don't know, that movie, if this is a marketing campaign, it's perfect.
I think, I can't see that they got all this engineered perfectly together.
I think it's just more that people are more willing to participate in big social events now. Like, whatever's going to get the hits on YouTube, whatever's going to have their, like, Twitter blow up, whatever their Instagram picture of a clown on the side of the road walking towards them. Like, I think it's just kind of, it's a social meme right now, and people are cashing in on it.
It's like the Harlem Shake or planking or something.
Yeah, it's the digital currency that it'll run out eventually, but I think it's just working right now.
Well, the difference here is between, okay, so you have the Harlem Shake, you have planking, you had the Ice Bucket Challenge, or what,
Yeah,
like last year.
Pokemon Go.
Well, that was nobody filmed, like nobody was talking about like filming themselves or taking pictures of themselves doing that. But this is something that you do to inspire someone else to post on social media. You don't take a picture of yourself as the clown, right? Like that's not the goal of this. I mean, yeah, you can take a picture of yourself as a clown, but this is about sort of putting on the mask and freaking somebody else out and giving them a story to have.
Yeah, and hoping that you make the newspaper and like they have like cops looking specifically for clowns in the woods.
But you can't if you fail if they know who you are.
Yeah, that's why you're just trying to get people freaked out so they're writing about you without you knowing. But I guarantee you at least a third to half of those YouTube videos where people see a clown like on the side of the road or walking out of the forest or anything like that, I'm sure most of those are staged.
You think?
I think so. Like, it's just the reactions aren't quite real enough. And the ones that are real enough are people that are actually just going out and doing that and hoping that that happens to them so that they can forward this whole, like, clown thing.
It's fascinating to me. But
I wonder if this is, like, the type of event that'll eventually have, like, psychologists writing some papers on.
Maybe. I mean, like I said, it doesn't feel that different from something like the Harlem Shake or whatever. It's just got a different, like, a medium of spreading. I mean, it's all the internet, but it's it's depending on other people instead of yourself. So I don't know. I think that, I mean, there are kids in school talking about this. My wife is a substitute teacher now, and she was just in class, and some kids are talking about the clown problem to the point where it wasn't her, but somebody else, like a different teacher in the class, got in trouble because the clown talk got back from like one of her kids, and like one of her children was scared, and despite the fact the teacher had nothing to do with it, it was just some other kids saying like there was some clowns from Alabama killing people or whatever. Like that teacher got like called into the principal's office, so she was like, all right, you need to like clamp down on this clown talk now. It's kind of shady in my opinion.
A little bit. Fault. I really don't think she should have gotten in trouble for that unless it was the teacher telling kids that like if they don't behave, they're going to be put into cotton candy cocoons and have the blood sucked out of them by the clowns.
Which is what I do to my kids.
I mean, that's just natural. It's part of childhood.
They don't believe me. They're like, read the Old Dark Frog, Daddy. Read the Old Dark Frog. And I'm like, your little frog children. I am not hungry now, but I will be. And then I am coming to eat you. And he's like, yee, this is the best. The Old Dark Frog is from the children's book, I believe Frog and Toad are friends, and it's the best.
Sounds like something I should get my niece. She loves books so much.
It's a really cute little kids book series with these two friends, Frog and Toad, and they just sort of go around. There's like 4 stories per book. So the Old Dark Frog is just like in the middle of the book where Frog is telling Toad one of the stories. But they're all very, very charming and cute, and I love reading them to my kids.
I have not read a kid's book to a kid in a long, long time. I used to do like babysitting and stuff way back in the day, and used to get kind of into the reading of it and try to give it different voices and all that.
It's amazing how much you can do with something simple, like The Very Hungry Caterpillar, right? Or it's the same story. It's just this caterpillar eats through one thing, then he eats through 2 things, then he eats through 3 things, then he eats through 4 things, then he eats through 5 things, then he eats through a bunch of individual things, then he eats through one nice green leaf. After that, he feels much better. Then he builds a house for himself called a cocoon and waits for a certain amount of days, and he pops out and he's a beautiful butterfly. Like, very, very basic story. However, you can make that like super dramatic. I love doing the voices for that one. It's like, on Monday he ate through 1 strawberry, but he was still hungry.
Have you done the rock opera version of it?
No. What?
Just
what is that?
Seeing how far you go.
Oh no, I just like amp up the like. When I get to this, I was like, on Thursday he ate through 5 oranges, but he was still hungry. And then, like, you get to the part where you're reading something. He ate through 1 slice of a chocolate cake, 1 ice cream cone, 1 taste of lemonade, and he's like, after that, he had a stomach ache. You just get, like,
just
all worked up. Yes. It's great stuff.
I feel like before we forget, we do need to answer a question from Chris Becker on Twitter.
Hit us with a movie. Is it movie related?
Yes, it is actually Phantasm related.
Very well. Go for that.
Is the sphere the coolest weapon in all horror?
No.
I don't
The
think
sphere
it's
is
quite
weird.
there. I think it's cool,
It is.
but I can't say it's best ever.
It's the most original weapon in all of horror. I will give it that. But like, between the chainsaw and the machete, I can't. Like, both of those for me are ahead of the sphere. The chainsaw is, I think, a stupid weapon for any kind of serial killer to use. I'm happy for you people who are fans of the Leatherface guy and his chainsaw wielding ways, but I think Jason with his machete is probably
as far as just simple and effective, that works.
Right. And it's very visually striking. I mean, not even without the mask, which is definitely part of it. Blades in general. Freddy with his claws, those are pretty messed up.
Straight razors all modified.
Right. Michael Myers just uses a knife, right? He just runs around and just stabs people.
Yeah, he has a knife, cool. And I think he has some other stuff that he uses. Like, Ghostface uses usually just a knife, but he'll sometimes get creative.
He's not the one killer, though. That's just like a mask that different people put on, right?
Yeah, like, there's always two, at least. I've always, like, that's a series I really need to revisit sometime, because I've heard that, like, Scream 1 through 4 is just a perfect quadrilogy. I've only seen the first and second one. Yeah, and then they changed up Ghostface a little bit. It's an MTV show. I'm not entirely sure how that is.
Well, our friend Jen says it's as good as it can be. She couldn't talk real bad about it because she was an extra, but she couldn't talk real good about it because she's honest.
Yeah.
So.
She gets to be in so many cool things just because they all film in Louisiana right now.
She was in Magnificent Seven.
Yep, she's in the church scene. The woman who designed our logo, Jen Gautreau.
It's time for us to do something else today, Tony. It's time for us to go into a little segment that I like to call Trailer Talk. We're giving it a name. We've been doing it for a while now, but we're actually going to make it its own segment. We're going to talk about some cool trailers that came out this week that we wanted to talk about. A lot of comic book stuff this week. We had Guardians of the Galaxy drop. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I should say. And that's looking, as a teaser trailer especially, that is impressive.
Yeah. And it felt like it didn't show too much. It just gave you enough of that flavor that you were really into what was happening. Like, it's a minute 15, minute 20, something like that. And it captures that feeling that you're hoping for. Maybe it's because, like, the song in the trailer is literally about that feeling. But, it just looks so good.
I like the way they use the song. I think that I wasn't like a giant fan of the trailers for the first one, but it definitely sort of planted that seed that this song is part of this universe in our minds now, that we sort of we link Hooked on a Feeling with the Guardians of the Galaxy trailers especially. And so to bring that in, but not just to like, here, we're playing it again, but like have it start like way off in the background, kind of a little bit staticky, and sort of build and build and build and build, and like, you wouldn't think that you could have a creepy ooga chaka. And somehow they did, not creepy necessarily, but just sort of suspenseful. And it really builds up to, kind of the like that hits and it's all fun again, but it feels like there's some weight to it this time. It feels like, okay, yeah, we're still going to have fun. It's still going to be awesome. And there's going to be Rocket and Amazing Baby Groot.
Yeah, the Baby Groot thing is awesome.
I need more of that. They had exactly the right amount of it in the trailer where he's just there at the last second. He's like, hi, I'm super cute. Oh, I'm gone now. It's the end of the trailer. No!
Did they have to get rid of Vin Diesel, though? I can't imagine he's got a voice for Baby Groot.
I think they could just pitch it up. That's what I would
true.
do. I would still like use him and then just like put a filter on it or something. I mean, he doesn't have anything else going on lately, Sort of. Oh, this is ancillary to trailer stuff, but did you hear him drop the comment that he thought that Fast 8 was going to win an Oscar?
No, I did not hear that.
The guy, he was talking about the director coming off of Straight Outta Compton, and like he was like, yeah, man, he didn't win an Oscar for that, and you could tell it lit a fire in his belly, and he brought something special to Fast 8, and he's gonna get it for this one. He like,
props for selling the movie, man, but I just don't buy it.
I don't know that here's the thing, I don't know that I want to see a Fast movie that would win an Oscar. Does that, I mean, I I think about Mad Max Fury Road, and I think that one didn't win, did it, for best film?
It won all sorts of Oscars. Like, it won everything but, like, the best of categories. Like, it won
Okay.
best editing, it won best sound design, won best special effects, but it didn't win best picture or
So
anything related to it.
that's a sort of action-y movie that it's in the vein of Fast and Furious that I could see maybe winning an Oscar, but I think that the tone of the series is pretty well set now, and people are responding to that. If they, like, how, you can't go super serious with it, because that's not what the series is. I mean, granted, I guess it's Vin Diesel just trying to sell the movie, but I also think that he sometimes, he said this, I think he said it about Fast 7 too. Honestly, I remember back in the day, he had the comment about Fast 7, like, this one's gonna win an Oscar. No, I don't think, I mean, it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna make $1 billion, but no.
All right, let's just do a full tonal shift and bring Clint Eastwood in to direct it. Make it get that Oscar bait style out there.
Speaking of Oscar bait and action, the next movie trailer we have to talk about is Logan, which is a little indie film about a guy who has claws that come out of his arms, and he's in the future.
But no
It's
healing
Wolverine.
factor.
It does look like an indie film, doesn't it?
It does. Like, it has a much smaller feel to it, which I really appreciate with the comics. Because over and over and over again, whenever you have the existential end of the world threat, it just starts to ring hollow. I want to know, like, I want to get some of these smaller stories. Like, just because you're going smaller after a giant story doesn't mean it can't be a great story. And this one looks like it's going to be a lot more story-driven.
I mean, the defining moment for me in the trailer was when he says, they find, who I assume is X-23 initially, although they don't actually show that, but, the little girl, whatever, I think that this is where they first meet her, and he says to Professor X, well, listen, someone will come along, we can go on. Like, he's being a complete selfish jerk there. Like, he doesn't want to deal with anybody else's problems. He's already got enough problems. He's already dealing with Professor X, and Professor X says, well, hey, somebody did come along. It's us. I mean, he doesn't say it like that, but, he has a much better delivery. But I like that this is a Wolverine that's kind of sick of helping people. Like, he's helped people. I mean, I guess sort of he always was that. What?
Crotchety old man Logan.
Yes. I also like that he lives in, like, the tipped over water tower. It's one of those, like screenwriters' ideas of what a really terrible place to live would be, but also looks really cool.
Yeah, like, we get a little bit of, like, the crazy scenery in the next trailer as well, but we'll get to that in a second.
Well, but speaking of crazy scenery, the fact that in that water tower, I mean, it is beautiful with the holes and the sunlight coming in through the rust holes. It looks like sort of stars over at some points when Professor X is in there. It looks like he's sort of, and from some of the synopsises I've read, he's kind of mentally losing it, possibly giving way to Alzheimer's or dementia or something, which in a guy who can get into other people's minds seems like kind of a really bad thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So
don't want to be the nurse that's trying to, like, tell him that he can't go to the park.
Or tell him that all of his friends are dead except for the one crazy Canadian.
Yeah. That really mean Canadian doesn't want to see you right now.
What about Jean Grey? Oh boy. Listen. Have you heard about the Phoenix? Because that did end up happening after all. By the time we get to that, like, the 20-aughts or 2010s will be a period piece. You think they're going to let Bryan Singer keep directing X-Men movies?
I don't know. Like, with what happened with Apocalypse, I wouldn't be surprised if they moved on.
Did you watch Apocalypse? I did not.
I did not.
Well, I can't, then I don't feel...
Yeah, I don't want to trash something I haven't seen. Like, I've seen parts of the ending because people post it, because anything, like, I can even say who it involves because it's kind of a spoiler there. But it seems like it could have been at least a competent movie, not like X3.
Okay.
Which was so bad.
And the final trailer we have to talk about this week, it just goes in all of the trippy weirdness ways. I have no idea. Well, I tell you, I take that back. I do have an idea what this movie's about, Tony, but not because I watched the trailer. I heard the synopsis, and this is A Cure for Wellness, directed by our old buddy Gore Verbinski.
Gore Verbinski, like, he still is one of my favorite stylistic directors, and it looks like he just poured it on for this movie.
Well, right, and we talked about in our review of The Ring that, at least for me, it felt like that he was trying to create a world that maybe for me anyway, didn't quite work for what they were doing with the story there. It sort of needed to be more grounded, and he wanted to make this fantastical, sort of otherworldly place. He gets to do it in spades in this Cure for Wellness trailer. I don't know. I have no idea if the movie is going to be any good, but the trailer was one of the most mind-blowing experiences I've had with the trailer recently.
You said that to me, and I was like, I have not even heard of this movie at all. I thought it was going to be a trailer like the one for that Japanese movie you really want to see. But I opened it, and I'm like, whoa. Just like flat out, whoa type moment.
It's got... I mean, I don't even know how to describe. It's got just like it's very green. I will say that. It's sort of like a very tinted green thing, which is fine. It's again stylistic choice. It's got people in water tanks, like with giant.
Yeah, the whole isolation tank thing has gotten real popular lately.
Well, Stranger Things. Although we would have been making this before Stranger Things was popular, so I guess just sort of the zeitgeist biting everybody at the same time. This sort of weird, almost Terry Gilliam-esque landscape. It's this sort of combination medical facility / industrial park kind of place. The plot that I've read is that there's a CEO of a company who's been on this wellness retreat, and he's been like sucked in. The company is afraid that he's being held hostage or whatever, so they send this guy to find him and to bring him back, and then he finds whatever is happening in this movie with like the eels and the things in the water and the creepy. It's just I don't even know.
Scientists and doctors and all sorts of other stuff.
It's such a visual thing, and without very much plot to the trailer, it's almost hard to summarize. It's just, you guys got to go watch this. It blew my mind. It got me very excited and very interested, and I can't wait for that thing to come out.
Yeah, it's one of those where I kind of want to avoid the rest of the trailers just because I'm sold on it. Like, it's kind of like me with The Arrival right now. I don't want to see anything else. I'm going to see it. That's all I need to know.
Well, for those of you who are interested in The Arrival, from what I've read from people who have seen it, the most recent trailer, the second one and the last one that they released, does not spoil the movie.
Okay.
So if you do watch it, it's actually, the second one just felt basically like remixed clips from stuff we'd already seen before. So from the teaser and like from the first trailer. So I mean, I'm not telling you have to watch it, but if you did watch it, it's not like, from what I've heard, it's not like, oh no, it's screwed now. You've seen the movie.
Have you heard anything about what people are saying about that? Are people liking it?
Yes.
Good.
I think it was at Fantastic Fest, and it played at TIFF, I want to say, and people were very happy with it. I think it's been getting positive reviews, so
that's good.
We do have to touch on also, there was a news story that came out, which got reported under the headline, Joss Whedon says he wants to direct Star Wars. Inaccurate. The actual headline that should have come out of that particular story, from a quote that he said, was, the headline should have been, Joss Whedon steals idea from Human Echoes and makes it dumb, because he said that he's making his next movie a World War II like horror movie with like killing and stuff in the middle of the killing. And if you'll recall, we've espoused the idea many times of having a World War I horror movie with vampires killing people in the trenches of the war. Joss Whedon, apparently fan of the show, but also not a fan of good ideas, decides to set it in the war that everybody else sets their stuff in. And he's like, no. What if we set it in the boring war? What if we set it in the not just absolutely soul-suckingly awful, awful war? I mean, it's still bad. I mean, I'm not diminishing World War II, but like, come on! Battlefield 1 just came out this week. It looks amazing. Like,
yeah,
World War II's finally...
World War I hotness back.
If we're getting some love for World War I, Joss Whedon, make the right call. If you're going to steal our idea, steal the good parts. Steal the good parts of the idea.
You grabbed like 2/3 of it and you just had to push it a little further. Because everybody loves the World War II stuff. I
mean, I guess timeline you're pushing it forward, but maybe
we already got Dunkirk coming out this year, or is that next year? I'm not sure.
It might be one of those that releases like late December in limited release, or possibly Christmas. Because I think they want to do Oscar stuff for it. So yes,
we already have that coming out. So just step it back. The only other World War I movie you'd be competing with is the Wonder Woman movie.
The only... Oh, yeah, that's another good point. They're doing Wonder Woman in World War I as well. The only thing I can think is that he's got a smaller budget, right? And there's a lot more World War stuff around. It's easier to sort of build a World War II stuff around. It's easier to put that together from sort of existing elements, off of the sort of costuming racks and the studios and, the props that they have around versus World War I, which, because it's less well represented, would require a larger budget to make.
If you're making a Star Wars, Joss Whedon could probably get the budget for anything he wanted.
I don't know. And I don't know that he wants to. I guess, director always wants to have more money, but he did, after he did the first Avengers, do that sort of like in his own house remake of, not remake, but it's a Shakespeare thing. I forget exactly what the name of it was.
Much ado about nothing.
Yes, much ado about nothing.
Yes. That wasn't a negative endorsement of that movie. That was a yawn. I'm sorry.
I didn't get to see it, so I saw part of it, but I didn't finish it. So, but I think he's okay. I think he would like to do a movie where he gets to do his own thing and is not beholden to a lot of money people. Because when you get a lot of money, you have to answer to the money, and that's the right way it should be. I saw Ouija this week, and the Ouija 2, The Origin of Evil, or Ouija, it's not 2, it's just a prequel, whatever. The Origin of Evil, and there's stuff in there that I feel like Mike Flanagan, if he was on his own, could have done a different, possibly better movie than what it was. I think he still did as good a job as he could have, but it was really like had weights tied to his feet because it was a prequel and he had to line it up with the terrible movie that came out first. And sort of, there was a lot of stuff that felt like studio notes in here, but when you taking money from people to make your movie, you have to listen when they say, I want it this way, because that's how it works. They're the boss. They're paying you.
That would definitely suck whenever it's just pulling over and over again. Like I think it was Chris Rock talking about how they spent a year sending him just like binders full of notes of everything that they needed to change for this movie that he was doing, and how it just grated on him and made him hate the movie so much by the time it was over. Like every time he sent them like a new script, it was just another binder full of notes.
Like a binder, like a big, like I sent you like 20 pages. How is this a whole book? How'd you get 500 pages out of, what is this? You just write the script yourself.
Especially whenever it's like trying to tell a comedian how to write a story. It's like part of the reason why Louis works so well is because it is just Louis doing his thing. Like he writes, he directs, he does all of it himself, and like that vision goes through and it makes it his product. And I hate whenever they try to interfere with that too much. I'm sure there's times where the studio has full on saved movies before, but it seems like you always hear that they just ruined it.
Well, right. Well, nobody like, I don't think that just doesn't fit the narrative, right? Like the director's not going to come out and be like, man, you guys, I was going to make a stanker. And then I got those studio notes and holy crap, were they ever right? Like, that's just not going to happen.
That would be awesome if somebody admitted to that. They're like, man, this movie it wasn't working right. And then this brilliant executive who's never written on anything before in his life, he was an idea man. He came up with it and it was perfect.
And I was like, why am I even doing this? Why aren't you? And he's like, no, I must stay here and shepherd the good movies through. Other bit of movie news that caught my eye this week was that Godzilla 2 got a new director. And man, this is just so depressing for me on so many levels. We've talked about this in the past, the fact that how like they delayed Godzilla 2 because Gareth Edwards is going to work on Star Wars, and then Gareth Edwards went to work on Star Wars, and after he made Star Wars, he was like, you know what, I'm not going to do Godzilla 2. And so they finally found somebody to do Godzilla 2. What's the guy's name, Tony? You know what, I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is your world, not mine. I enjoy like the Godzilla movies, but I'm not paying super close attention to the director switches right now.
They got director Michael Dougherty to direct, who is most famous for his Trick or Treat movie that I have not seen, and most recently his Krampus movie, which I have seen and thought was okay, but did not think, man, this would really work well, but if instead of the Krampus it was a Godzilla movie. What about that? no, that was not, in fact, what I thought. And I'm a little bit bummed by this. I mean, I want it to be good, and maybe it will be. Maybe that magical studio exec will step in and make it be awesome.
And maybe it's just he had a good pitch for it, like the guy that did Jurassic World.
Right?
Because he went from safety not guaranteed. That does not inspire you to think, like, oh, he's totally the right guy for Jurassic Park. Sometimes I think it's just about competency and being able to, like, take the script that they have and just make it work. It's not necessarily you had to have made big monster movies before. I mean, the obvious choice would be like, let's just get Guillermo del Toro. And then they're like, wait a minute, he doesn't make any money ever.
That's true. That's very true. But Guillermo del Toro doesn't make any money ever because he's sort of like Laika, right? He just keeps making his own thing that he wants to make, and people are like, what is this? And it's always weird and hard to market. Like, it's easy to market Godzilla. So I think he would actually be a good fit for that. He keeps avoiding these projects that could be big money, right? Like, what was it? He was supposed to direct The Hobbit and, like, just sort of got bored waiting around for them to get something going. And so Peter Jackson stepped in to do it after Guillermo left. I say bored. I think there was actually some creative differences also behind the scenes. Like, he wanted to go a certain way, and the Warner Brothers...
Maybe he didn't want to make it 3 movies.
Maybe not. But regardless, he keeps sort of sidestepping the easier to market stuff. And,
and he makes cool movies like Crimson Peak, which I'm kind of back on liking that movie again.
Oh, yeah?
Like, it's still weird that I kind of go back and forth, but, like, it was because I wanted a ghost story and I got a gothic romance, and it ended up still being a good gothic romance, and it was stylistically awesome, and I could just, like, I just had to come to terms with it wasn't the movie that I wanted, but it was still a good movie.
You're allowed to change your opinion, I think. I mean, I'm certainly... I would definitely want to reserve the right to say, you know what, I said this was bad, but I kind of like it now, so I'm on board with that. And
the Hellboy movies never really did that well, even though I really love those Hellboy movies.
Yeah, and he keeps wanting more money for him, too. He's like, I need, $300 million to do Hellboy 3 right. They're like, no.
Yeah, Ron Perlman's like, I get a call occasionally, but it's probably not happening.
I mean, he's old now.
Yeah.
He's not young. He's the opposite. He's
the tall man. He's old.
I wanted to close on this story, completely un-movie related. However, Ryan, I don't know if it was Ryan North. I thought it was Ryan North that retweeted this. This story. How old is Ryan Lochte's dog? Because the tweet that I saw was just a series of screen caps from 2015, 2016, and... No, I'm sorry, 2014, 2015, and 2016. 2017 hasn't happened yet. For some reason, my brain tells me we're in 2017, Tony.
Yeah, you've been talking about that for weeks now, that you think it's 2017, and this whole year has been 2017.
I swear to you, like, it's not... For the whole year, I've felt like that. But he has a birthday on, like, October 8th or something. And so on October 8th, for at least 3 consecutive years, Ryan Lochte, victim of Brazilian criminals during the Olympics.
/ like Olympic swimmer for the U.S. Possibly the dumbest man that has ever lived.
I don't know about that. I mean...
No, like, seriously, like, there are some... Look up the segment from John Oliver's Last Week Tonight on Ryan Lochte and just, like, things he said in interviews. That man is dim.
He swims fast, though.
Yeah, very fast.
But he's tweeted for 3 years in a row on the same day. So glad, I've had 8 wonderful years with this dog. It's turning 8 this year. Turning 8 today. Turning 8 today. It's like, he can't turn 8 every year. How old is this dog?
Maybe he just likes the number 8. And the thing is, like, you could say, well, he's probably 11 now, but, like, you really don't know. Like, that dog could be 14, it could be 7. I'm just not convinced that Ryan Lochte knows how to count.
Do you think... What if...
I honestly think he probably should not be able to operate a motor vehicle. He just shouldn't be allowed to do anything other than get in that pool and win us gold medals.
I'm just and also not lie about people robbing him at gunpoint. He should not be allowed to do that. I just, created this idea in my head that it's not the same dog. And his parents, like the dog keeps dying somehow, every year, and they keep replacing the dog with, an identical dog, and he's too dumb to notice.
I still kind of wonder if my parents did that with my lizard back in the day.
Well, that's a lizard, though. They don't care about you. You don't have to care about them.
Well, like, I was about to go and hang out with a friend, and, like, my mom walked in, and she's like, oh, I think Spike is dead. And, like, lizard was just, like, black and completely, like, gnarled up and weird. And then whenever I got home, there's, like, a new lizard there was a lizard in the tank, and they were like, oh, we took him to the vet, and they gave him an adrenaline shot to the heart, and it worked.
Did they say it in that tone of voice?
Like, I can't remember the tone of voice. I was like 7, but I definitely know that there's some suspect parts of that story. Especially because, like, Spike, whenever I bought, like, yeah, it's a dumb name for an iguana, I know. Not original. I was 7 years old. Sue me. Like, that was
you will hear from our lawyers, Tony. I just want you to know.
That was a boy lizard. And then later, the new Spike, or possibly new Spike, laid out about 40 eggs in the tank. So, you know, they either sexed it wrong or gendered it wrong, whatever. I don't even know anymore. Social justice warriors have me all mixed up with gender, sex, etc. Whatever. It was probably
Lizard
a male,
lives
then
matter,
we got a
Tony.
female. And I'm pretty sure that to spare my feelings, instead of just, like, having a teachable moment about death and animals, like, you know, they just went and bought me a new lizard. To be fair, it was, like, exactly the same size, like, same spike pattern and everything. So if they did, then they did a good job. If they didn't, well, like, I'm glad Spike survived his weird turning into a black lizard thing.
And he turned into a girl. That was what it was. He was trying to turn into a girl and he just couldn't manage it. Like, he died halfway through and the vet was like, we will save him. Like, the vet, like, gathered all their people around. They had, like, the lights in. It was the emergency room scene. They're like, boop, 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 clear. And he's, like, doing the chest massage, but, like, just with 2 fingers because it's a little tiny lizard. I want to believe, like, Tony. I want to believe that so bad.
My mom's the type of person who straight up would spend, like, $1,000 to save, like, almost any animal. Like, she's the type of person that'll take everything to the vet. So, like, I could see her, like, we have one of the better vet schools in the entire country here in Fort Collins, like the CSU veterinary program. One of the best ones that's in the country. So, like, they have equipment for every type of animal. They've got, like, the little tiny gas mask you would need to operate on a lizard and all this other stuff. So, if there was a place that could save him, it would be that. But, like, that lizard looked dead as hell. Like, it was so gross looking.
I need a lizard in a gas mask now. Hold on. I'm just doing Google image search. Everybody continue with your lives. Lizard gas mask. Yes, this is all fine.
Maybe put lizard under anesthesia.
This looks... Okay, there's some good stuff here, but it's not what I want.
It's life. I almost called you Joe. I almost pulled what you do.
Oh, no, it's fine. Well, that'll do it for this week on the Human Echoes podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We did not discuss what movie we're going to talk about next week. Tony, do you have something right offhand that you know we're going to talk about?
I know we could either start the Halloween movies just because we've talked about doing that, or we could possibly do... That's going to be in November, isn't it?
Yeah, we could. I think Halloween should be saved for next year for Halloween.
Yeah, probably. I would say we'll figure it out later and we'll post it on Twitter.
Okay. Look out for that.
Also, just want to say thank you all for making it this far into the episode. If
Man,
you like
what
this...
is up with your super cynicism about the episode?
Well, once the ads start, turn it off. Like, I kind of zone out sometimes. The best way to support this, if you love the Human Echoes podcast, which the Twitter poll ended up going our way. It was kind of scary for a little bit. People did not love us. I was very sad. It turns out you do. And the best way to love us is by giving us that sweet, sweet cash by becoming a member at humanechoes.com. $2, $5, $10, $20, any of those levels will get you the bonus podcast. After that, you start looking at getting things like t-shirts, pins, postcards, all sorts of fun things directly from us. We released our second pin not too long ago. While supplies last, if you become a pin number or a pin level member, you actually get the old pins as well. So we're sending out those 2 pins. You'd get the 3rd pin coming out. All sorts of fun stuff is going on there. So become a member at humanechoes.com today.
And we will see you guys next week with something else. Thank you so much for listening.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.